Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitartown CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So my guest today is the bluegrass singer and bandleader Amanda Cook. Welcome to Got Grass, Amanda.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So just a little background here. I don't usually talk at the beginning, but I wanted to say that when I started this podcast, I had a list of about 150 people I wanted to interview, mostly the old guard of bluegrass, shall we say. But I got an email a few months ago from Caroline Owens, who said she enjoyed the podcast and would like to be on it. I didn't even know who she was, but I listened to her music. I realized I really need to talk to more of the younger players and the kind of up-and-coming stars of bluegrass, not just, Todd Phillips and Doyle Lawson, but people, So here we are. I want to talk to you now also because you're performing in New Haven this coming Sunday, June 30th. It's a house concert put on by my friend Louis Audette. It's Sunday, June 30th at 24 Everett Street in New Haven at 1:30 p.m. Tickets are $25. Tickets information are on my website, which is guitartownct.com. It might be sold out, but if you want to hear Amanda and her great band, check it out. Don't wait around. So welcome again after my rambling introduction.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're heading off on a family vacation this Sunday, so I won't even be able to come to your show or meet you, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll run into each other somewhere down the road. As long as we both stay in bluegrass, I'm sure you're going to, and I probably will too. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I usually start off with a question, which is a non-musical question, which is, if you had nothing on your agenda for the day and there was no guitar around, what would you be doing? Now, this is funny because I ask most musicians and they all say I would be playing guitar, playing mandolin, writing music, playing the bass. I said, no, if there's no music involved, is that even possible to answer?
I mean, it's absolutely possible for me to answer because my go-to on any time that I have nothing to do, I just want to vegetate. Because not only am I a full-time touring musician, but I also run Mountain Fever Records. That's my full-time job, and also work in the studio. So I don't get very much time off. I'm also a wife and a mother. So I'll be very honest. If I had free time with nothing else to do, I would sit on the couch and vegetate.
Oh, that's a good, honest answer. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I know you're very busy. I know you've got a lot of irons in the fire. Yeah. I know leading a band is a full-time job as it is. You also have another full-time job, and being a mother and a parent is also a full-time job. So you've got 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
So how long could you veg out? You probably don't have more than a day ever when you have nothing to do, right?
I never have a day. I've not had a whole day off in quite some time. I mean, usually I get a couple hours in the evening once, the work day's finished and supper's cooked and the dishes are done. I usually get about an hour, and I just like to watch some mindless show on my iPad, or I put my headphones on and just listen to music. I mean, that's my dream of vegetation, is just not having any kind of communication or anything, just mindless blob.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah. I mean, I love laying in bed. It never happens. If we're out on the road and I have a hotel room to myself and I can get a couple hours to just lay in bed and drink coffee, that's like my form of heaven, just to, just totally chill. But
how old are your kids? Do you have more than one, or?
I do. I have 2 kids. They're 24 and 16. So they are older. 16-year-old still at home, so still have mom duties. But yeah.
That's funny because I also have a 24-year-old and a 16-year-old daughters. I also have an older one. I was married before, but my 24-year-old lives in New York and my 16-year-old is home. She's going to be a senior in high school. So
Yeah.
We're have the same issues, I guess.
Yeah.
Dealing with
Yeah.
teenagers is not always an easy job.
No.
So let's get to the basics here for our listeners. So where did you grow? I know where you grew up, but they may not. Where did you grow up, and what was your musical life like as a child?
So I grew up in Santa Rosa County, Florida, right on the Gulf Coast, not too far from Pensacola, and grew up with a banjo playing dad. He played bluegrass my entire childhood, and when I got into my mid-20s, I really got hold of the bluegrass bug and joined a band with him, and started the band with him playing mandolin. And then our bass player quit on a Tuesday, and we had a gig on a Saturday. And he went out and bought me an upright bass, learned the set from Tuesday to Saturday, and then I played bass the rest of the time that I was in that band. And that is absolutely where my bluegrass education came from, was from my dad's style of bluegrass. He is a super traditional, Flat and Scruggs, Reno and Smiley. That's the stuff that I grew up on. And he still plays till to today. Like, he's still got a standing Saturday gig every Saturday. He's out picking banjo. So, yeah.
It's funny because almost everyone I've talked to on every instrument at some point in their career has played bass out of necessity. Like,
Yeah.
right? There's no bass player. You got to play it. Well, I don't know how to play. Well, just hit a few notes and stay in time and we'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a really great friend, Otis Pollitt, that had played bass, and he had made me this chart. And the other day we were going through my bass case for my bass player. He needed something out of my bass case, and I came across that chart, and I'm going to save that forever because he's passed on now. And it's the coolest thing how he marked out the chords for me, and I taped it to the side, the curve in the bass, so that I could play and I could cheat during that set and look and see, okay, let's see, how am I going to play F? Yeah.
Right. So do you have any memory specifically when you were a kid that you said to yourself, this is really what I want to do for my life? Do you recall ever thinking that? Or you just was assumed that you were going to be a bluegrass player and from the start?
It really didn't take hold until I got in the band with my dad. I mean, I love music. I was in band, choir, I did all of those things during elementary and middle school, but it really wasn't until I got in the band with my dad that there was this moment that I thought, maybe I could do something with this other than just as a hobby or as fun. And while I was in the band with dad, I decided I'm going to try to cut a record. That's kind of what started it for me. I figured, like, well, I could cut a record and send it out and maybe get it on the radio. Maybe it will start something. I've told this story before. I was at a gig with my dad, and I guess I was probably in late middle school, early high school. And we were at a regular Friday night jam, and dad was out picking, and there was these three women that had come up, and they were singing 3-part harmony. And I remember that very clearly, how much that moment, it kind of changed me. I was like, this is really something I really, really like, those three women singing together and the blend, because I'd heard dad sing, I'd heard all of his friends singing together. But it's, dad, like, he's a killer singer, but it didn't really hit me until I heard those three girls singing together. And I thought, I really like this. And that really kind of had me looking into the Cox family and Alison Krauss and going back to those older albums of female leads, and really got me interested in that part of it. And then, the rest is history. I cut that first record, and then it wasn't about a year later that I left the band and put my band together and started this crazy thing. So this band has been together now for 10 years. So
It's funny because I was talking to Caroline Owens just a couple of days ago, and I saw a video of her on YouTube with Alison Krauss and Suzanne Cox when she was about, I don't know, like 16 or something, doing this three-part harmony thing on some couch,
Mhm.
and I don't even know where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did you have a background in church and gospel music growing up? Was that a big part of your life or not so much?
It was. I mean, we were very faithful to church growing up. My grandmother made sure that we were there. I sang in the choir, but never a front. Like no one really knew in my family, including my dad, no one really knew that I had the aspirations to sing lead vocals or sing out in front of people at all. I just the only person that knew that was my grandmother, and she was the only one that I would sing for. Um, and then again, that moment in time kind of came. I entered a band competition, not a band competition, but a singing competition in Pensacola. And I just decided one day I'm going to do this. And I called my dad and invited him to the final round night. And he said, "You're going to do what?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in a singing competition, and I'm going to sing Martina McBride's Independence Day." And he said, "What?" And my husband, we had been married at that point 3 or 4 years, and he had no idea. And he said, "You're not really going to do this. You're going to embarrass yourself." He was terrified because nobody really knew. And then, I ended up like second or third place in that competition. So,
Oh, you were kind of like a secret singer. Nobody knew you
right,
could sing, but you
right. Yeah.
and your grandmother.
Yeah. My grandmother. Yeah.
So were you that must have taken a lot of well, we would say balls, but I guess
Yeah.
courage. A lot of courage to go do that. I mean, right? In front of people. You weren't a little kid, you were
I
grown
was
and
20. I was 23. Yeah. I was 23 when I did that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I guess looking back on it now, I guess that was kind of ballsy, as to say. you know, I, you know, I thought, well, I, I think I can do this, and I just did it. And it's kind of the same thing with the career. A lot of work has went in, that's for sure. But I just thought, well, if I work really hard, I can make something happen. And that's kind of the way I've lived my whole life in all aspects of my working career. If I work really hard and practice and do all these things, something will happen. So,
Um,
yeah.
I know a lot of bands around this area, New England, didn't grow up in the church and seemed to be more about the music than the church tradition. A lot of the younger bands. Do you think bluegrass and the church will always be connected, or do you see bluegrass kind of heading away from that with a lot of the younger bands that just seem to just want to like be able to play like crazy, but there's doesn't seem to be a religious thing there.
I
Church.
don't know. I mean, I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, even Billy Strings, I mean, he's one of the top artists in the genre, and he's still cutting gospel tunes in arena shows. I feel like that's always going to be a part of bluegrass, because those are the songs that even the new people, even the new artists, these young artists, Wyatt Ellis, how he's so young, they're coming up the ranks of the genre, and that they still were raised on the hymns. They were still raised on, you know, those gospel tunes. So I don't see that changing. I definitely see the genre changing every day. I feel like the music is getting more progressive, but I think that's just because you've got this whole young generation of musicians coming into it, and everybody's goal now is to make their music their own. Whatever you record, I mean, no matter how hard I tried, we would never sound like the Bluegrass Album Band, you know, as much as we'd love to. I love those
Well,
guys, but yeah, I think
mhm.
we all just try to make our own sound, and it's a different time.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally not a religious person, but I love gospel music. I always have, and I'm
Hmm.
glad to hear you say that you think it's going to stay.
Yeah.
It's an important part of bluegrass music.
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
it. I think it always will be, and I hope it always will be.
Yeah.
Um, So did you have a musical hero or a role model when you just said, I'm going to sing? Was there anyone that you thought, I'm going to sing like so and so, or did you have someone in mind or?
I mean, I guess it never came to me that I wanted to sound like someone else. I mean, I will always say that my dad is definitely my biggest hero. He's literally taught me everything. Um, I admire his playing and his singing. I mean, my dad can cut tenor like none other. I love to hear him sing tenor in a band, with the guys. But I think influences, I definitely, the Cox family definitely influenced me. And of course, Alison Krauss, and Carrie Hassler. I've had a lot of people tell me that they see similarities there. And it probably is because I've listened to every song of hers probably 1,000 times a piece or something, like I love that style, where she was just this strong female front with this really killer band behind her. So yeah, definitely influenced by those folks.
You kind of answered this question, but will you look back and say some occasion you remember that was kind of a life-changing experience? Maybe that was when you did that singing contest. Was that like changed your life?
I think so, because that's what kind of started the whole ball of wax. I did that, and then my dad came and he was shocked, and he said, "Hey, let's put together a bluegrass band." And we put the band together, and then I had to learn how to sing harmony. I could hear it, but I'd never done it. All I'd ever done is sing lead. I did sing alto in church, so I guess I did sing harmony, but it's a little different. The only reason they stuck me on alto is because I was the only one that could hear the alto part. But learning how to sing the 3-part harmony and do a tenor and a baritone, high baritone in a bluegrass band is a little bit different than singing in a choir, and you're not reading anything either. Everything's done by ear. So I'd say that, that was a turning point, getting in the band competition, getting in the band with my dad, and then learning. I knew the songs already because thankfully I'd listened to all those in the vehicle for all those years riding around with dad, but yeah. And then I guess the big turning point will be when I did that first record. I came home from work and told my husband I want to record an album, and I quit my job. That's probably the biggest turning point. When I quit my full-time banking job to say I'm going to go and play music professionally, that was like the real, that was again one of those huge leaps of faith, and thankfully it worked out. But yeah.
Well, the banking world lost out and bluegrass gained, so thank goodness you did that. Um, so here's another question. It's not really a musical question, maybe it is, but what advice would you give to your younger self now? If you could talk to your younger self now, what kind of advice would you give? Any specific?
Yeah, just absolutely don't pay attention to any of the negative. The roller coaster of the music industry. One day you're happy, you're over the moon, and then the next day you're down as low as you can get. And it is a roller coaster ride of emotions, and to see more of the positive and less of the negative. Those first 5 years with this band was really, really hard because I was working so hard to get it off the ground and get bookings. And those first 5 years, it's just like any other business. The first 5 years is when you're normally in the red. And those years of struggling to get bookings and things like that, and being met, people knowing who you are, it was so hard. And I'd get really, I'm not really a depressive person. It takes a lot for me to not be happy, but it was like a hit to the, your self-esteem over and over again. So I would say, let go of the negative and just focus on the achievements and the positive things, and enjoy the moment of what you're doing. We've made it this year to our Opry debut.
Good.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah,
That's awesome.
we're so excited, and that's something that I never thought would happen. You know, I never thought that we would be at this point, but it's been 10 years, and how fast that time has went by.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say the hardest thing about your experience in bluegrass so far has been rejection of any kind, or like just what was? I mean, I know you work hard, you book gigs, you play, you
Mhm.
love to play. Everybody loves to play. That's what you live for.
Yeah.
But what was the most difficult thing that had you maybe discouraged at any point, or just the hard work, or?
No, for sure. I revel in the work of it. I
Uh,
love the work of the music. Just doing all the promo stuff and all of the things that go into it. I'd say for sure it would be the years of not being recognized, which that sounds so egotistical. Like I hate to think of it that way, but it is the lack of acknowledgement. All this hard work you're putting in, and then you're not able to get gigs, or you can't get certain places to play your music, and then realizing that not everybody's going to like necessarily what you do, and then just that me staying true to what I do. There's been moments that I've almost given in and said, no, I'm not gonna cut this song because it's too progressive, or it's too this or it's too that. And there's been times that I've almost given into that, but I'm really glad that I haven't, because I think for us, staying true to what we do and kind of stay in the course has benefited us. A long rise up rather than just a shoot to the top kind of thing. Um, yeah, it's been tough, but here we are. It's so rewarding. Like I look over the last 5 years of all the places we've played and the people we've met, and just we went everywhere, and the fans, and just the way that everybody's accepted us, and you know love the music we've made. That's a huge happiness. you know yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess the happiness, the people who listen get happiness, but people forget that the musicians also get happiness from entertaining and playing. I mean, you
Right.
love to play and you
Right.
love to people that like it. So, I mean,
Right.
I've heard many people say, I think Sam Bush most notably saying that, we don't get paid to play, we get paid to travel. We play because we love to play.
Hmm.
I think
Right.
knowing a lot of, especially the younger bands who do drive around in a van and travel
Hmm.
all over the place and book their own gigs. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a heck of a hard life, and you're not making a fortune. You have to, you have to love it, right? You have to love it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. I mean, there's definitely not a glamorous life. You know, we're not flying on private jets and having caviar and champagne 3 times a day. you know,
That's probably a good thing.
right?
You probably
Probably,
wouldn't play too well if you had that much champagne.
probably not. But we do love it, and I'm really, really lucky to have the band that I have. We've all been together for years. And we are more like a family. We have holidays even when we're off, we have holidays together. We actually enjoy spending time together. So it is a bonus that I get to travel with my best friends. I can't imagine trying to travel and do the things we do with people that you can't really get along with.
So when you were coming up in the bluegrass world, did people in the bluegrass community have certain assumptions about you because you were female and pretty and you were a band leader? Did they try to steer you in a certain direction, like, oh, you should do this kind of music, or oh, you really shouldn't do that kind of music? Did you face that at all that you recall, or?
Um, yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think the most common comment that I got early on was that because there's two girls in the band, we would be boring. I got that comment a lot.
Really?
Of course, that was 10 years, 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, that those comments were made. That oh well, I don't really, I'm not really interested. Just it's another chick band. Those comments were made. And then I have had people try to influence the style of music. Just like I said, I've had comments about the music being too progressive, and not sticking to the traditional bluegrass or whatnot. But again, I didn't let that go. I didn't let that sink into my brain enough that I changed the goal, and I think now, like, as we've played out more and people are seeing us live, that old thought that we're boring is way gone. That's long gone. Because we're not, I mean, this band is very high energy. We really don't do that many slow songs. Like, I could record a whole record of ballads. I could sing a whole set of ballads. I love slow songs, but we just don't do that to our fans. They like to see that high energy bluegrass, and that's what we bring. And it's been pretty rewarding to have some of those promoters now say, "Oh, wow, like, that's not what I was expecting."
I was going to ask you, did any of those old men ever come back to you later and say, I was wrong?
Yep. Yep.
I'm sure.
That's happened.
So I'm going to get to your band in a little bit, but what was the nicest compliment you've ever gotten as a musician that really made your day or your week or your year?
Oh, goodness. Let me think. Well, I've had many comments, that have really touched my heart. I would say we were at a festival in Arizona, and I had a lady come after our set. She was waiting right by the gate to get to the merch area, and I can't remember her name. But she came up to me and was just in solid tears. I mean, she was just sobbing. And and she said she was, we did that song, Come Back When You Come Back Down. We had covered When You Come Back Down by Nickel Creek. And we had cut that night in Arizona. And she told me, she said, I've always loved that song. She was like, my daughter passed away, and that was the song, that we had at her funeral and things like that. And she said, and I've always loved Nickel Creek's version. She said, but I've never ever heard that song done like that, and how much that meant to me. And I mean, it was just like the emotion that we caused that woman to have. And you feel bad, but, and then I'm just crying right along with her, and she was just so touched, by hearing that song at that festival. And that was one of those that we kind of just threw it on the set. So it was like, how did that happen? We weren't going to do that song, and then we did, and it really touched that woman's life. That's probably the best compliment I've ever received, is just the pure emotion that woman felt from us doing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I hear a lot of young bands. A lot of them have played it up here at Guitar Town, and I always my hero in bluegrass was Tony Rice, because I always felt the emotion in his vocals, even though he didn't write very few of the songs, but I just felt like it was him speaking from his heart in every line he sang. And I always feel like the emotion of music is the most important part. A lot of young bands get carried away with their technique and virtuosity and all these crazy things they do. But if you don't have the emotional connection to the audience, it just doesn't do anything for me. I don't know. It sounds like the same for you.
Oh yeah. And that's why I would love to do a whole album of those ballady kind of songs that those slow, pretty songs that I feel like those are the ones that really you can pour, the emotion just oozes out, but fortunately can't do that. But, I go back to like my, one of my other heroes, like Bonnie Raitt. Like, you listen to her, like Dimming of the Day by Bonnie Raitt. It just oozes with just pure emotion. Like, you feel so sad for her.
Huh. I know. Well, I don't think you should give up on that idea. In fact, I always loved duos playing together.
Hmm.
And I think you should do a duo album with some of your favorite singers and do a duo album of ballads
Yeah,
with Bonnie Raitt, whoever, you never know when I always ask people in this podcast, who would you like to have sung with or sing with if you had the chance? And, Missy Rain said, "Oh, I would love to play with Jimmy Martin." And
hmm
Rhonda Vincent said, "Oh, I would love to sing with James Taylor." And
hmm
but then you see a lot of these collaboration albums coming out with people doing duets and things with other people that they admire, and they just pick a song together and sing. I see. I think you should do that. Just my
Yeah.
recommendation. That's my recommendation.
Okay. I'll take it. It's under advisement.
Okay. So you do write songs.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you write songs? Do you have a specific way of sitting down quietly with your guitar, and do you come up with like a melody first or a lyric or both?
Well, in fact, I wrote a song yesterday. And I'd worked at home yesterday, and it just, these few lines had come to my head as I was sitting there working yesterday. And I just got up and went out into the living room, and I just got my phone and the note app and just wrote out the chorus and the verse. Um, and that's the way it's always happened for me. Now, the only song that I've written that I've done the complete thing from beginning to end was Lonesome Leaving Train in 2009 in a camper bunk. I wrote the whole song through the night, but most of the time it's just these one or two lines that will come to me, and then I'll work on it, and then I go back to it. We are starting to pull material for a new record, even though this current record doesn't come out until October. We'll start recording in February or March. So I have to start, so it's been on my mind, the last 3 months, like, you need to write, because I did not write on this last record. I didn't write anything. And so I don't really have a method. It just, however, it kind of comes to me. And then if I can find the time, like, I wish that I had a week that I could take off completely from everything and then just write. But the reality of that's not, it's not going to happen. I know a lot of people get into sessions, where they make time to have writing sessions, and I've not done that either. I would love to, you know.
I mean, it seems like, especially in country bluegrass too. I mean, a lot of these songs are written by two or three people, a lot of the
Mhm.
same people. I mean, there's some fantastic songwriters that just can churn out interesting, good
Mhm.
songs by the
Right.
hundreds. I don't know how anyone could do that, but they seem
Yeah.
to be able to. I always thought I've written only a few songs, and I always thought it was very hard. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I'm always going back and trying to make it better. And maybe
Yeah.
at some point you just have to let it go, say that's the song done, and move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what would you say is your strongest suit or strongest quality as a performer on stage? Let's say. I'm gonna answer it for you because I think it's your enthusiasm. Because I see you on the stage on these videos, and when I see your banjo play or your fiddle play something, and you're like hooting and hollering, it seems like you just love the excitement of when someone like really like steps up and does a beautiful thing in music.
Yeah,
Is that
I mean, that I think that's it. It's just that, I guess I could say stage presence. I don't really, but I'm not really. It's not really an act. It's just we're up there, and nothing as far as MC work or anything that's going on other than the music. None of it's rehearsed. It's just all kind of ad lib, and it's just us being ourselves. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I, I'm just I hope that I can just show people a little insight of how we are from the stage. And I really enjoy that part of it. I get a lot of people pick on me all the time about the accent, especially when we play in the northern states. People will come up to me after the show, and they'll say, "Oh no, you do really sound like that." I'm like, yeah, that's this is how I really talk. I feel like that's probably the thing that maybe sets us a little bit of apart, because it's all just, this is who we are, and I absolutely do love it. I love my band and I'm so proud of them. If I, like a little mama bear, I get so excited because I know the fun they're having, especially when they nail, a cool lick or something. It's just, yeah.
So you do have an outstanding band. It's a very hard driving, talented band. I love your banjo player, who I guess must be a good friend of yours. You seem like you're close on stage.
Yes.
She's a hard driving player. She's very, very good.
Yeah. Caroline
Yeah.
is she's my best friend. And
okay. Well, that's what it looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. And she and I started the band together. So
I see.
When I made the choice to start the band, she was my first call. And yeah, so we've been doing this together since the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were the two chicks in the chick band when you first started out. Wow.
Yep.
I see your guitar player, Brady Wallen, used to play with Clay Hess. Clay, I just talked to Clay a few weeks ago on the podcast, and he played here quite a few years ago, a couple of times when he was playing with Sierra Hull, when he was like the only guy in the band old enough to buy a beer and rent a van.
Yeah.
They were all like 17, 18.
Right.
That was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about your band? Or I mean, you don't have to go through all the introductions and stuff if you don't want to, but you can if you want to. I mean, they're all top quality players. And anything else you want to throw out there about them, or just say?
Listen. I mean, I would love to list them, because
go ahead.
I would be nowhere without them. That's for sure. So Caroline Bandleader is on banjo and singing lead. She sings some lead vocals and harmony vocal. And then her husband, Troy Boone, plays mandolin for us and lead vocals and harmony vocals. And then Brady Wallen playing lead guitar. And then Josh Fall plays bass, and George Mason plays fiddle for us. And cool story about George. George was the second member to join the band. And so he's been with me 9.5 years at this point. And George, he was the orchestra director for the Lawrence Welk show.
Oh, that was my nightmare show as a teenager, because it would come on Sunday nights or Saturday nights, and we would be watching with all the bubbles, and we would be so embarrassed because we just wanted to see the Beatles, and it was like, oh my God, Lawrence Welk.
Right. But George has had this illustrious career. He played for the Osmonds, like he traveled with the Osmonds. He used to work fiddle competitions with Alison Krauss and things like that. Like everyone knows George. And I find it's really cool because he could really work for anyone, and he works for me, so yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's what I gathered from reading about him. And obviously you can count on him to come up with something great all the time.
Yeah.
He's just so good. I'm gonna make a editorial comment here about your music, and I've listened to a lot of your music on YouTube, and this is my comment to your sound engineer: bring up the lead vocal. I honestly feel like your voice should be more prominent in the mix. I do these concerts. I do sounds. I'm not an engineer, but I do sound, and I know bluegrass bands like to kind of spread the sound around, and everyone is equally heard, and yada yada yada. But I honestly feel like your voice should be more prominent in the mix. Any comments about that?
Well, I'll tell.
I want to hear you. I want to hear you.
I got you. I'll tell Aaron, but I find it, for me, it's very important that I'm not. I mean, I know it's my name, I know it's my band, but I'm not the center of attention when it comes to our records, because it is the band, and that was one thing with this new record that's coming out in October. I pushed for so hard to make it very clear on the album cover, with all of interviews, with anything we've done for this new record, that everyone understands that it was definitely a band project. We produced it together. And it's really important to me for that to be known. Because again, I would not be able to have done any of this stuff without them,
Ah.
So
So
yeah.
do you see yourself staying in bluegrass as a band leader over time, or maybe venturing into either country, or maybe even doing like a solo or duet thing down the road? Or are you just happy where you are now?
I don't see me doing anything else musically. I mean, I would be definitely open to doing a feature or like, and I sing on all kinds of projects. People have me come in and sing harmony vocals for them and things like that. I'm down for that, absolutely. Doing a duet with Bonnie Raitt would be killer, right? But as far as the Amanda Cook band, and this is what I want to do until I retire, which, if and that's the good thing about bluegrass. You can, as long as I can sing, and I can stand up, I can still play bluegrass until I'm well, into my 70s or 80s. I mean, look at Del McCurry, um
Um,
yeah, so
no, that's
I'm definitely not going anywhere by choice. Yeah.
we had one of our shows, which was a highlight of my life in bluegrass. We had Dr. Ralph Stanley come play up here for us, and he eventually had to sit down and play the banjo on a
Hmm.
stool. And the nice thing is, during the break, he offered to sign autographs, and everybody brought up their thing, and he sat there and signed every darn one of them. This was
Yeah.
only a couple years before he died. It was as a promoter, as a small promoter like me, I don't really have a chance to talk to the artist much because I'm so busy like collecting tickets, serving food, blah blah blah, breaking down the show, and then the band's gone, and I'm there like taking stuff home at midnight. So I didn't have a chance to talk to him as much as I would have liked, but that
Oh
was a
no.
high point of my life. Just hearing him, he did the solo version of that famous song of his, "Oh Death."
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. It blew everybody away. So do you have anybody in the history of music that you would have enjoyed playing with? Um, if you could go back in time and sit in or sing with any particular person or band?
I mean, I would have loved to have done something with Tony Rice. I just to have sat in with him, kind of like he did Shadows with Alison Krauss.
Oh, yeah.
I Yeah, that would have been amazing. I mean, he obviously was alive during my lifetime, and he, you know, hasn't been gone that long, really.
Oh,
But yeah, I would have loved to have done something with him. Or even Ralph Stanley. I mean, Ralph Stanley is one of my favorites. I mean, I cut a Ralph Stanley song on this new record, you know. Um just the history. I mean, yeah. So yeah, those two, I would love to have done something with both of those. Yeah.
did Tony Rice ever hear you perform live? Did he ever come that you know of? No.
I don't think so. IBMA, that the year that he was at IBMA and he came back and did that speech,
Hmm.
we passed we passed him, you
Yeah.
know. Um and I guess that was the closest I ever got to being around him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. He when I started doing the shows in 2008, he was the first band that played, and he played up here four times um, before he didn't anymore. And I mean, he was he had this reputation as kind of a difficult guy and a loner and yada yada. Actually, he was, in my view, one of the friendliest, most open, nicest people I ever met in my life. He talked to my daughter about piano lessons. He talked about his love for jazz. I used to make him food. I used to make all the band's food. I made him lobster rolls. Oh,
Oh
and
wow.
he loved them. I heard he loved them. And
Yeah.
so I had I wasn't a friend of his, obviously, but the conversations I did get to have with him were very intimate and friendly and just
Yeah.
nice guy.
Yeah.
Despite, and he's obviously a legend and had this whole mystique about him that gets gets more and more every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
let's see, what else do I have to ask you here? Oh, this is another tough question, maybe, but is there anything about yourself that you would change if you could?
Yeah.
Uh,
I would love for the OCD to be a little less. I have I laugh about it. Everybody around me laughs about it, about obsessive compulsive disorder, because I have a really hard time with disorder, and I have a really hard time with like messiness and things like that. So you can imagine how tough it is on me traveling with a bluegrass band. Right. So I try to, and I've gotten better over the years. When I first started, it was really hard for me because I needed structure. Like I thrive in structure, and sometimes kind of flying by the seat of my pants throws me for a loop. And so I've chilled out a little bit, but I'd say that would be the biggest thing. I would love to just be able to chill out a little bit more and not be so uptight about like things being just so, in a box and being right. And it's mostly with traveling. It's really just mostly with the traveling and like having the car packed a certain way. And yeah, I hate to even admit that.
That's a good, no, that's a good answer. It's funny because change is hard. And I know
Yeah.
as one gets older, lots of times you get set in your ways. But also, I find myself being less, like I'm a perfectionist too, but I
Mhm.
find myself being less interested in perfection as I get older.
Mhm.
My wife, I think, is going the other way. She likes things like very orderly and neat, and I'm like, I'll deal with it tomorrow, And so I guess that's maybe why we get along. We're complete opposites that way. But
Yeah.
I know some people get more like set in their ways, and just it's
Yeah.
hard to change. It's hard to
Yeah.
change. I was going to ask you. There's so much talk and stature, I guess, in the bluegrass world about winning IBMA awards and so forth. And obviously, I guess most people would like to win. You'd like to be vocalist of the year, right?
Oh,
Would
yeah.
you? Yeah.
Mhm.
So what does that do for your career, like in terms of bookings and also dollars, if you win an IBMA award? Do you think about that or?
I I don't know that I've never really put it in the perspective of dollar amounts, or I think it's just the acknowledgement, like I said earlier about the acknowledgement of hard work. I think that's our thing is as if we won an IBMA award, if I won Female Vocalist of the Year, doubtful, but if that did happen, I feel like it's just an acknowledgement of the hard work that I've put in. Um, I don't know what it does for the other side of it. Do promoters look at that like, oh, well, she's one female vocalist of the year? Maybe it would be neat to be able to, say, oh, I won an IBMA award because I've worked really hard to get there. Um, yeah, doubtful. It's
Well,
doubtful.
I did vote for you this year. I don't know. I can only vote once, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
your name was one of the ones. I don't think it's so much promoters that would be saying that. I think it's more like agents would be saying, "Oh, my band that used to get 5,000 now can get 8,000 because
Yeah.
my band won a IBMA, or if they win a Grammy, well, now they're going to get 15,000." I mean, I've kind of
Maybe.
run into that with some of the younger bands, or even not
Yeah.
younger bands that I used to be able to afford to come here, and I can't anymore because they won
Yeah.
Grammy or something, and they're just, they're a little out of reach now.
Yeah.
It definitely
Well,
affects that.
I do see, I do see that over time. I mean, obviously, our prices went up over 10 years because when we were first started, we were happy if we got $500. That was. I remember the first festival that Caroline and I booked, and we got 560 something dollars. It was like 565 or something, and we were just like, "This is the greatest day ever." We were just over the moon just to get that. And your price does have to go up, which just like now, how much it costs us to even travel, that's the main thing is how expensive it is for us to drive. We're heading to Connecticut, and that's what it's 11 hours from here,
On
you know.
Vermont, which is even farther,
Yeah,
right?
and
You're
then
going,
Vermont, yeah, and then
that's
Vermont's
another three hours or more.
14
Yeah.
hours to Vermont. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of gas. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I will say the Opry, there is a certain amount of sparkle and shine that's been associated with our Opry debut. and we're excited about that. I mean, my dad put it in a really good perspective for me. He was like, there's a lot of people that have went their whole career and never got to do that. And I was like, wow, Dad, I never thought of it that way. He was like, well, you should,
Yeah. Sometimes dads have good way of summing things up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Right. Are you somebody that likes the sound of your voice when you hear the recording, or do you sometimes go, oh, geez, I can redo that. I could do better.
Yeah. I never feel like it's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never feel like it's right. And that's why I have these great people that work with me. Aaron Ramsey is always with us in the studio. He's producing for me and working with me in the band. And he will say, you're not cutting it again. That's it. You're done. There's been times that I've cut vocals and had one take, and I'm just livid because he will not let me re-record it. And he was like, trust me, that's what it needs, and then I'll eventually give in and say, you're right. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah.
Seems like I mean, a lot of people will say that. A lot of very good singers will say that they don't like the sound of their recorded voice and want to redo and recut and touch up.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have this feeling that sometimes the first take of any song is the best, even if it's not that well rehearsed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know talk about Tony Rice and his bands and Bluegrass Album Band. I don't think they ever rehearsed. I don't think they even ever had a set list. I know when he played here, he would just say, "Let's do this song," and off they go. And it was just spur of the moment, and you just did it the best you could, and it sounded great, and
Yeah.
you couldn't get better. So I
Right.
sometimes feel like a lot of artists, especially ones who are perfectionists, tend
Yeah.
to kind of overthink the
Mm-hmm.
song when really the first one sometimes has the best, even if it has a little mistake or fluff or some little thing in it, is still, that's my take, the best. I don't know.
Well, and that's why you trust the people you work with. I mean, specifically on the Changes record, we cut that song "New Stars." It was a gospel song,
Yep.
and I recorded that in one take. And there's a section in there where my voice clearly cracks because I was barely able to not cry because that song moved me so. And Aaron said, no, that's what you want. You want that little crackle. You want to hear that. And you'll go back and listen to it. You'll hear it.
Of course. Well, he was right, I'm sure. I'm sure
Yeah.
he was right. Yeah. You were talking about money in bands. I remember talking to Doyle Lawson when he used to play with Jimmy Martin, and Jimmy would say, if we play a gig, you get $15. And if we don't play a gig, you get nothing all week. So that was
Right.
that was the pay back then. So maybe you might make $30 a week as a band member of one of the biggest bands in bluegrass back in those days. Hard to believe.
Yeah. $30 would I couldn't make it to West Virginia on $30. Yes.
Let me ask you this question. Could you survive as just a band leader in this world now, or would you have to have another job?
No, I would have to do something. I've been fortunate to be able to work in the music industry, and that has allowed me to travel and do all these things. But personally, I don't think we could survive if I didn't have something supplementing. Yeah, it's just it wouldn't be possible. I mean, just to pay my car payment that the car that I travel in with the band, just to make that payment, I have to work to pay those things. The music, the way that I've always ran my business as a band leader is I have household money that pays for household, and then I have band money that pays for band. And those two never meet. I don't let that cross over into one another because I didn't want to, I wanted the band to be able to keep itself going. And again, we've been really fortunate. We've had great radio play, and that's been able to keep the band moving. And then good, gigs. We've been very fortunate in having good gigs that take care of us. And there are times that we share hotel rooms, where there's 4 of us piled up in a hotel room, and there's, 2 in the other hotel room. So there are times that we do that. So, and we're not staying in Holiday Inns every time. Sometimes it's a Motel 6, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have a 6-piece band, right? So
Right.
with you, so it's, every other player is just is one more great person on stage, but it's also one more you got to pay and feed.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's a lot to take on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already asked you this, I think. I asked you if you have a day off. The question I have at the bottom of my list, if you have a week off, but that's a stupid question. You'll never have a week off with nothing to do, right? In your life.
Well,
right?
I do have a week scheduled off.
Oh, you do?
The week of Thanksgiving, we scheduled a family vacation, me and my husband and the 2 kids, and we're going to go on a 5-day cruise. And there will be, no cell phone, no internet. We'll just be on the cruise. And we haven't had a family vacation in 6 years. So.
Yeah. Well, your kids will love it. I don't know. The no cell phone thing I find is very hard. And we have a strict rule around the table, eating, no cell phones, but they often have it in their lap, just like they do in schools. Like it's almost impossible to.
Right.
But yeah, because we're going on vacation this coming week. But they go on vacation, they go to the beach, and they're still on the cell phones at the beach, talking to each other on the cell phones, like sitting next to each other. It just makes it's a different world.
It is. I've been lucky that my kids are both they're very much like outside kids. We lived very rurally in Florida. So both of them are like my daughter goes camping all the time. Like they love to be outside. My son fishes. They're not inside kids. Yeah. Good.
I like to hear that.
Yeah.
So many kids don't even go outside anymore. They just don't even know. You say you can go out and play. I don't want to. They want to be
inside.
Their whole play world is on the device.
Yeah.
Are there any other younger performers that you like that I should try to get on my podcast? Anyone you can think of? I'm as I said, I'm trying to balance out, the Doyle Lawsons and Peter Rowan with younger people that are up and coming, because the audience wants to hear everybody. And anybody you can think of that I should talk to?
So we've got 2 bands here on Mountain Fever that I've brought on in the last couple years that are really, I love their work ethic, and I'm so excited to see like what happens. But Appalachian Smoke is out of North Carolina, and man, they are the nicest fellas you'll ever meet, and they're just super traditional bluegrassers, like super traditional. And then Remedy Tree out of Florida. Gabriel is the band leader in that group, and just super just driven, and they're after it. Like they are working their social media, and everything is just off the charts, and they're just such nice people, and they're making really their own. They have their own sound. It's progressive. It's bluegrass, but it's progressive, but it's also very much like unique and original. Like they have their own thing going. So that's my 2 recommendations.
Thank you. That's good. I mean, it's helpful to me because I'm trying to expand my world of interviews here.
Yeah.
Is there any question that I didn't ask you that you wish I did ask you that you'd like to put in there at the end?
Not that I can think of. I hope that I didn't say too much.
Well, the whole point of the interview is to listen to you, not me. So you're supposed to say things. That's good. Well, I'm going to just thank you for taking time to chat today. I want to remind people that Amanda Cook and her band are playing this Sunday, June 30th in New Haven, Connecticut. Details are at www.guitartownct.com. I'm sorry I won't be there, but I hope to catch up with you somewhere down the road. So thank you again for chatting, and good luck with everything. And that's all I can say. Good luck.
Well,
Best of everything. Yeah. Good luck.
So much. It was nice meeting with you.
You too. All right. Take care.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.